The most versatile ingredient in the world, in my opinion, is the egg. There's so much you can do with eggs, but we're all living different lifestyles. Sometimes we've got a ton of time to dedicate towards cooking, and then sometimes we just need to throw together a quick egg breakfast. So I'm gonna structure this video a little bit differently. If you're looking for just a quick breakfast option with eggs, you're gonna wanna check this out right here. If you want something a little more extensive, a little more hearty, something that you can feed your whole family with, boom, right here at this timestamp. And then if you really want to go in and have fun in the kitchen and make something completely from scratch, boom, right here. Or of course, you can just continue on and check out all of these egg recipes. The first egg dish is the omelet, something that everyone should know how to make. It's quick, it's delicious, and it's very customizable. I've been making omelets since I was like 12 years old. Maybe not good ones, but enough to, get me into cooking. And of course, I've learned a lot of things over the last 20 years of my life, some skills that I'm gonna show you. But before I get into the omelet, I wanna tell you about today's sponsor, which is an ingredient you will see in this omelet. This right here, as I adjust the exposure, is Monchevre Goat Cheese. They make it in crumble form like this, and then they have the log, and there's a ton of different flavors. This is garlic and herb, which I'll be using later for another egg dish. And I'm a huge fan of goat cheese. Personally, I like it better than a cow's milk cheese. I think it's a little easier to digest, and also it just has a unique flavor that tends to pop out in dishes, which I really like. And Monchevre sent me a bunch of goat cheese, so I've been using so much of it over the last few weeks, and it's just so easy to take, these crumbles, throw it in a salad, or spread it on some toast, some sourdough. It's such a good option. So make sure goat cheese is on your radar and check out Monchevre. I have a product locator below if you want to find this near you, but I want to show you my favorite omelet technique. Making an omelet is very quick, so I'm going to pretty much show you a live tutorial here. I have an 8-inch pan, which is a great size for one omelet or a 2-egg omelet. And I got my heat on a medium. You don't want to overcook it because it will dry out, and you don't want your eggs dried out. I'm gonna start off with a little bit of butter. That's too little bit. Okay, while your butter melts, I'm gonna crack 2 eggs. This is a 2-egg omelet, but you can do 3. It just really depends on how hungry you are, how many eggs you want in the morning. Whiskey, whiskey, whiskey. I'm using a nonstick pan, which is your foolproof option, but if you're not, just make sure you swirl your oil or your butter completely around every single crevice, and then pour in your eggs. While the eggs are starting to firm up, I'm gonna take a little bit of parsley and some green onion, but you can use whatever herbs you have and just chop them up. Since these herbs aren't cooking much, I want them super fine diced. So eggs starting to curdle up. As it curdles, we're gonna just take it in with a spatula, just around the edges in a few spots, and let the non-curdled part sink into those corners. You can even help it along the way, just like this. So basically, wherever you see raw egg, just push in a corner and pull that egg to that corner. Okay, so that's pretty good. We're gonna sprinkle on that Monchevre goat cheese, just a nice layer of goat cheese. Sprinkle on those herbs. Wow. Little bit of pepper. So you can see we're just cooking the omelet from the bottom. It's still a little undercooked on the top, but I'm not even gonna flip it because flipping it could potentially lead to breaking your omelet right in half. And for me, that's not always worth the risk. And right here, touching that, okay, almost cooked through, but just a little underdone. But that's all right because when we roll this up, it's gonna continue to cook. All right, now all I'm gonna do is just start rolling. I don't know if rolling's the term. Folding, move it over. So we're rolling instead of flipping, which to me is lower risk. Big fan of this technique because when you roll it up, the omelet's continuing to cook. So all that egg that was slightly undercooked just comes to temperature, but it's not overcooked. And then of course that cheese, well, let's see. Can I show you this bite right here? Wow. Wow. The herbs and the goat cheese, that combo, it pops. that is an interesting omelet right there. You serve that up for your friends, your family, and they're gonna be like, whoa, somebody learned how to cook. That is ready to impress. You gotta try this. All right, next up is the frittata, or the frittatsky as I sometimes refer to it in my household. And this is one of my go-to breakfast dishes to make because it's very simple, and you can also just load up all the ingredients you have. Any produce, any meat, whatever you want, you can throw it in a frittata, and you've got a big dish rather than making a bunch of omelets. So it might take a little longer to make, but you don't have to make individual omelets. So yeah, let's make a frittatsky. All right, we're all prepped. Step one taken care of for frittata success, but step two is probably the most important, which is really getting the perfect pan or the right pan to set you up for a great frittata. You don't need it nonstick. Nonstick is always easier when it comes to eggs, but I've made plenty of frittatas in stainless steel, or cast iron actually works great. You just want to make sure that pan is well lubricated if it's cast iron or stainless steel, or the frittata will stick. And you also want to make sure it's the right size because the pan is going to be the size of the frittata. So the depth of it, and then of course the diameter, that's what it's called, the size of your frittata. So this I believe is an 8-inch pan, and it's just the perfect frittata size for 3 to 4 people or 2 people with some leftovers. All right, so things just went from me teaching you something that I know how to do very well to experimentation. I put a little air in these eggs. You've seen those fluffy omelets potentially, maybe on the internet you've seen that. Well, let's try a fluffy frittata and see what happens. Onions looking great. Gonna dump back in the bacon. And this is really crucial when you're making frittata. See, it's a little dry. Well, I mean, there's oil there, but you want to make sure that you've got a nice coating after you cook the ingredients of oil or butter on the bottom, because if you don't, the egg is going to stick. So I'm just going to get a little extra of that bacon fat in there, but you can use oil or butter. And we'll dump in our egg. I'm just taking a rubber spatula and moving it a little bit in the beginning phases of that egg cooking, just mixing up all the ingredients and letting that egg curdle just a bit. And then once everything is sort of mixed up in there, I'm just gonna let this cook and get super crispy on one side. And while that's happening, we're gonna set our oven on broil and just make sure you've got your rack up close to the broiler, and you'll see what's gonna happen in a second. All right, so if you take a peek down there, yeah, we're getting crispy on the underside. That's what we want, but it's still jiggly on the top, which is why we're gonna broil it. But I wanna add some cheese on this first. All right, broiler looking good. So we're just gonna get that cheesy top nice and gooey and crispy, but this, more importantly, will cook through the frittata so you don't have to flip anything, which is why I really like this technique. All right, looking good, looking really good. The fluffiness is interesting. Pretty much an egg pizza right there. And just like a pizza, frittatas are really the ultimate clear your fridge out breakfast, and I make them all the time because of that very reason. I don't know if the fluffy egg really did that much. I don't know, let's taste it. Damn, that is good. Caramelized onions and bacon doesn't get better than that combo. And look at that crispy bottom right there. That's what you want. Nice cheesy top. I am very happy with that. Master the frittata and you'll be a happy camper. So you made it to the final egg dish, and a quiche is something that I love, but I don't make too often at home because it does take a little longer to make. But you know, sometimes you're just in the mood to get after it in the kitchen, and this is the ultimate just get after it breakfast when you've got some time on a weekend and you just want to have a little bit of fun in the kitchen. So we're going to make a quiche, but we're also going to go extra and make a quiche crust from scratch. And you know what? Since this is Pro Home Cooks, I'm whipping out the flour mill and we're gonna mill our own flour for this quiche crust. So
you can see we have a beautiful blend between some softer wheat over here, and see how this is a little darker. That's some hard wheat. This soft stuff, great for pastry, great for that crumbly crust. The hard wheat just has higher protein, so a little more gluten in there. But we still need to sift this to remove the bran because we don't want that in our crust. Now that's what I'm talking about. Beautiful flour. And the bran, we can use this for bran muffins. You can make a sourdough starter out of this, or you can dust your bannetons with this. But it's time to make a pie crust. So you don't want to overmix your pie crust. You just want to bring it to the point where these clumps clump together like this, and that's looking great. So I'm going to take this out now and just form it together and throw it in the fridge.
Okay, so while the quiche dough is chilling out in the refrigerator, we have time to prep the filling. Of course, use whatever you want. It's your quiche. I'm gonna be cooking up some mushrooms. I've got some portobello here and a bit of oyster. It's not as simple as the frittata where you're just cooking the ingredients in the pan and then adding the egg. We do have to cook this separately, so I'm just gonna chop up the mushroom into small pieces, get some oil in a pan, and just saute that mushroom until you remove the moisture and you start to brown them. And then I'm gonna add those oyster mushrooms, which cook a lot quicker. And then once those are looking really nice, just like this right here, I'm going to dump in a whole bunch of spinach and wilt that down, and boom, you've got your veggies for your quiche. So a typical quiche, of course, has a ton of eggs. I'm using 10 eggs for my quiche, and then it's accompanied by some type of dairy product like milk or cream. I'm gonna use milk, but first I'm gonna add in a little cheese, and I'm gonna call on my friends at Monchevre again, but this time I'm using the block of soft goat cheese right here, and it's garlic and herb, which will add a ton of flavor. So I thought before I added the milk into the egg mixture, first I would add the goat cheese because I thought it would mix pretty nicely into the base. And once that's looking nice and creamy, then I added in my milk to finish off the base for the quiche. Quiche filling, check. Time to roll out our dough. I've got an 8-inch pan right here. It's pretty deep. I'm going for a deeper quiche, and then we'll par bake it, and then we'll do the final bake.
I've never made a pie crust with self-milled flour. This is very delicate. I basically just babied it into existence, but I'm getting pretty excited to see how this is gonna taste. But there's still the hurdle of getting this into this. All right, well, that was a disaster. Luckily, pie crust is pretty forgiving and I can just piece off stuff and fill in the cracks, but wow, that just sort of cracked apart. All right, all patched up. I'm gonna throw this in the freezer to get firm before I put this in the oven.
right, let's examine this quiche. So crust held up decently over here. We had a bit of a leakage over here, some egg leakage, but I'm interested to see what's on the inside. Quiche looks good, nice and juicy, a little runny on the inside, but I'm all right with that. Under crust, really nice. Flaky, flaking apart right now. Oh, I like how some of the goat cheese emulsified into the egg and then there was still like some chunks in there as well. That's a nice look. Oh my God. Oh baby, I'm so happy that's good. Because sometimes cooking, well actually a lot of times, cooking just doesn't go the way you plan it in your head. Especially when I'm filming things, I got this idea, I'm gonna do these steps and it's gonna turn out like this, and it doesn't. But it's about the journey, of course. I know that sounds cliche, but I learned a lot and I got a good result. If this result wasn't good after taking all these steps to make the quiche, I would have been a lot more sad. Like, this is one of the better things I've made in a while. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, I am certainly egged out right now. There you go. We've got an omelet, a frittata, and a quiche. That should keep you well covered in the egg department for a while. Make sure you check out Monchevre. I have the product locator below in the description. Some delicious goat cheese for your egg dishes. But the real question is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, why don't you click on this video right here on my whole chicken series to find out for yourself.